glorious van. Yeah.
United Front.
Tell it.
What you want, what you want, what you want.
To the Knowledge Radio.
We in here. What
Yo.
you got? Dot.
Work hard as a slave to one day be your savior. The wave unwavering. This is a labor of love. Rise with a purpose every day. Invigorated. If we were on TV, we'd be 10 times syndicated. If we waited for validation, a paycheck or accolades, we'd be starved, already lost or ran away. But when you're square, solid, and your circle too, you don't need a place for silence. The concept is conquered through media, not areas of people activity. A mix that don't lose ethnicity, tightness that don't lose elasticity. Explicitly, this isn't where we give the novice regard. Nah, this is where knowledge is born. Last time that I checked, I'm undefeated. Deliver edicts, can't resist when the gods build and manifest freedom. When lines get crossed, they may push a loss, cause they get handed a check. We kick your can and cancel your cancerous gestures. A prophet vision, precision, the prescription for the sickness is to inoculate your fate with the winning. Arrogant beginnings turn to humble endings. And US with KBA is a win-win. 1K, 1K.
Alright, peace and black power, and welcome to another episode of Do Knowledge Radio, place where knowledge is born. This is your host, Knowledge Born Allah, and we are here, honored and truly privileged to have a moment in time with one who is divinely sent to us to show us that our African warriorhood, I call him the African warrior soul stirrer. You understand what I'm saying to you? One who has used rhythm, alchemy, and a restorative type of instrument to, enthuse the mind, engage the heart, and stir up the spirit and the soul. So let me give a warm welcome to Do Knowledge Radio. To one of our champions, one of our soul brothers who does the work for the soul. It says it in his name, and if you don't believe me, we're going to prove it to you here in a second. So, brothers and sisters, let's welcome our brother, the African warrior, Kaba, soul singer in the building. Welcome to the platform.
My pleasure, brother. Glad to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity. And I appreciate those words too. I hope to live up to them.
Hey, you done it, okay? You done it. You done it. I wouldn't have said it if you ain't done it. I synced it. What the folks say? I synced it. I synced it. Definitely an honor. Been watching you over the years. Light up rooms, re-inspire, reinvigorate. That zeal for African love, passion and compassion, indiscriminate to what the generation gap may have been in the room. You are grand unifying with the talents and the gifts that you possess in song, and then when accompanied by, the band or a cappella, wherever the case may be, you incite a spirit of African love and African unity. So,
I appreciate that. That's the goal. Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Yes. So we could take it back to wherever you want to take it back to. Who is Kaba the soul singer, and how did you have your entrance into this pathway of African liberation or Black consciousness?
Oh man, we could do a whole show on that. Wow, I've always been a singer. All my life. My dad. Can you hear me?
Yes, hear you fine.
Can you hear me? Okay, yeah. No, my dad is a singer, and so always grew up with music. Always grew up listening to music. He sang in groups and things. Just always listening to the classics, the Sam Cookes, the Marvin Gayes, the Ray Goodman and Browns, the Delphonics, the Shy Lights, the Spinners was his group, and I know, the Spinners was definitely one of his group. The Detroit Spinners and the Philly Spinners, all of the Spinners were his group. You know, just so many. So the music has always been there. Of course, like a lot of black people who sing, started off in the church. You know, and that was just something that we all did. Everybody sang. You know, and just the reaction I noticed early on, you know, the reactions from people when I sing. So that always encouraged me, you know, to continue to do it. I would later kind of, you know, my teenage years kind of get too cool to sing and all of that, because I was also into hip hop. I'm not an MC. I'm not even gonna try in front on that. But I loved hip hop, you know, so there was kind of like this notion that if you in the hip hop, then, you know, you didn't do singing because that was soft. So, you know, I was like, you know, just kind of stepped away from that. And I, you know, the Public Enemies, the X-Clans, the Poor Righteous Teachers, and groups like that, you know, when I was coming up in the 70s, 80s, you know. And then you know, I did not grow up in an African-centered environment. I'm from Florida originally. I live in DC, been in DC now for over 20 years, but grew up in Florida. So I'm a Southern boy. So, you know, the Southern church and all that stuff, and just really wasn't exposed in the area that I was to any consciousness at all. Ironically, to answer your question about coming into African liberation, I came into African liberation in the military of all places. And this is after, you know, I mentioned Public Enemy. You know, this is that. Yeah, it's after, as I mentioned, you know, listening to Public Enemy, you know, so I knew I got a letter from the government the other day. I opened and read it. It said they were suckers. They wanted me for the army or whatever. Picture me giving a damn. I said never. After all of that, I still ended up didn't need to get a letter from the government. I actually signed up. And this was right during the first Iraq war back in like 91 was when I went in after high school, after I graduated high school. So ironically, I was stationed in Central America, and one of my boys, like one of the people that I ran with, he actually, two of them actually joined after me, and one of them was actually sent to the same exact place where I was. As a matter of fact, I was in headquarters company, he was in Alpha company, so he was directly right next door. You know, he introduced me to a brother who he worked with, who also was a singer, and my friend knew that I sang, even though I kind of stepped away from it. Everybody knew I still sang. And so he introduced me to this brother, and I knew him as a singer. But lo and behold, you know, the brother ended up being a 5%er. Peace to the gods of earth, knowledge born Allah. So he kind of put me on and started getting me to reading and studying and getting into the lessons and getting into the history. So then I ended up, you know, reading Malcolm X, of course, autobiography, and Malcolm X speeches. And I found all this actually at the military's bookstore, Stars and Stripes. They actually had those books in there, from the Browder File and many of these other books that was kind of like foundational books. So that's really where I got started. Then I met a sister, a little bit older sister I was dating, and she put me on to like Ashrakwesi. So I started getting into that and seeing the African origins, the civilization, the African origins of this and that. And, you know, so just blew my mind, because again, I came up in a situation where we didn't have a lot of consciousness, but somewhere in the back of my mind, I always knew my whole life that there was more to us as African people than what we had been presented. And so I just somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew it. And I always, you know, like a lot of people did when we first came into this consciousness, I thought that all I would need to do is expose everybody else to this information, and they would come to it as readily as I did. But of course, over the years, I realized that many of those of us who get into this, we're a little bit different. You know, we come from, even though we may come from a particular family, a particular bloodline, you know, most of the people in our families, unfortunately, are not on that path. But I think we represent the ones who were who basically fought and died so that we could continue their legacy. And I think that every family probably has at least potentially that. And I think those of us are the chosen few, unfortunately few, in our families that represent that warrior spirit that's always been in African people ever since, you know, our enemies engaged us.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That transformation, that's a powerful, you know, situation right there. So what was it like for you after,
No
you
doubt.
know, coming into this awareness and going back home? Like just imagine you going back home, to your Christian household, and you're like, you know what, Mom, I'm God. You understand what I'm saying? Because what was that like?
You know,
Versus this understanding it and its adaptation, and these things don't change foundationally what you come into, but then you develop and you see that through this different guy. So just interested to see how that conversation was, if you could recall.
yeah, it's an ongoing conversation, but to answer your question more directly, it was difficult. Obviously, you don't eat pork. What you ate, you ate it from the root, basically from the rooter to the tutor. I ate chitlins, hog maws, pig's feet, everything. I ate it all. Like we pig ears, we ate everything. So from the pig. So that was a big difference. Just that alone. And so, of course, my family thought I was crazy. I had lost my mind. But I think after, 30 years later, and I will say this, my parents, they never antagonized me to the point where it drove a wedge between us. They saw that over time I was serious about whatever this stuff that I was into. And they came to it, while they may not necessarily accept it, embrace it, they came to at least respect it, and respect the fact that I was sincere about what I was into. And I think a lot of that I actually owe to them because, my father, I mentioned him before in terms of singing, he's a deacon in the church. His grandfather actually started the church that I grew up in. And so it's a legacy church. He started it over 100 years ago. His grandfather did. And so my father's a person that, while we may disagree on the whole religious spiritual piece, I respect the fact that he actually strives to live out the things that he professes. Like he's not one of those. I saw this, because your children know you, that your children see you. You can show whatever to the world and front and fake in front of everybody else. But my father is as advertised, like the way he presented himself to the world was exactly how he was. So I respected the fact that he actually did strive to live the principles that he espoused. And that had a profound impact on me. And that's something that kind of helped us to bring us to even closer together, is that I would tell him, like, we're actually, we may disagree, but I actually learned a lot from you. The fact that you study the Bible, that you read other books, that you read, he's a voracious reader. So I saw him do that. He listened to lectures of preachers, but that's something that I became accustomed to. Of course, a lot of us listen to lectures. So just the love of knowledge was something that I got for him. He did the knowledge, and he did it by example. Through his wisdom, through his wise words and actions. So I was able to kind of, just see that and emulate that. And that's always the best teacher, so and to the point where later on, years down the line, my father asked me, had I heard of Dr. John Henrik Clarke? And I was like, what you know about Dr. Clarke? And he said, well, somebody had mentioned him to him and he heard him speak. And because of, Dr. Clarke's, his delivery, he sounded just like the country people that we were used to down there in Florida and in Georgia. Actually, my mother's side of the family is very close to the place where Dr. Clarke was from in Georgia before he moved to Alabama, which was he was like right there near the Alabama-Georgia border. So it reminded my father and my family of those preachers that they used to listen to, because that's really the delivery that Dr. Clarke said. He used to say he's a frustrated a Baptist preacher all the time. So he was able to, be open to Dr. Clarke because of the fact that we would have different conversations, and it was always respectful. I never fell out with my family, and I know a lot of people do that when they come into the knowledge. But I've never fallen out with my family. My parents are still alive, they're elders, and they're still going strong. And we have a very strong relationship, because I think at a certain point, no matter what we may believe or what have you, we still need to respect our elders, respect our parents. While we can still disagree, while we disagree with them, I think it's still good to respect them. And I have reaped the benefits of being able to preserve that relationship with them. So yeah, it was definitely strained at first. And now, I've been a vegetarian also. So that was just another shift too, since like 1995. So that was another change. And they really thought I was crazy then, because I didn't even eat chicken anymore. So it's like, but again, going back to my point of just trying to maintain the relationship and make it as strong as could be. Now my mother, when we go home, when I go down there, my mother she veganizes, certain recipes. So she makes vegan mac and cheese, and it's still the bomb. My mom made the bomb mac and cheese. One of the things I always miss, but I don't have to miss it now, because when I go back down there, mom, she hooks it up. So, I think it's a good lesson for a lot of people who may be just coming into this, to maintain your family at all costs. Because at the end of the day, your parents love you, your family loves you, they want what's best for you. They may believe a certain thing, but I think it's always good to not go to war with your family, because at the end of the day, some of these people, and we kind of talked a little bit before we got on the air, some of these people who are supposed to be African centered, they may leave you stranded and leave you in the dust. And sometimes all you may have is your family, because your family is going to love you regardless. Now, your extended African family, if they really are your family, will love you regardless too. But for certain, your family, your parents, your brothers and sisters, for the most part, there's always exceptions, but for the most part, they're going to love you unconditionally. So that's the thing I take away from that.
I think that example is very powerful, and that's something that I gleaned to. Maybe 25 years ago, I would have a conversation, that would sound like a debate with somebody. You see what I'm saying? But 25 years later, it's different. I always recall a conversation I had with my uncle, when I was younger, and him and my father are both born on the same day. So my Father's Day is, November 25th. And when I talked to, my uncle on his birthday, I always remind him of that conversation I had when I was young. I was a teenager. I went to, my uncle's house because we always had questions. He's been a vegetarian for 60 years or so. You see what I'm saying? And we went to his church when we was little, and all of this stuff. So he was like, "Hey, do you got How to Eat to Live?" You asked me for certain stuff. When I was young, I was like, in the church, this dude talking about how to eat to live, right? So I get him How to Eat to Live. He's like, "Oh yeah, I appreciate it," But I'm thinking like, okay, yeah, he a vegetarian. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's what I knew. I didn't know anything about vegan. Vegan is like a new term. He's vegetarian. He don't eat no meat, but fish. Other than fish, he eat no meat. He never ate it. So it's like, okay, you go to this church. You see what I'm saying? So, this is our family's church. About 60 years in the family. So we have this conversation. I go to his house, and I always ask him little questions here, there. And I went to his house one day, and I was like, "Uncle, I need to talk to you." He's like, "All right, come in." So, going there, I said, "I got a question to ask you." I go to Psalms, right? I go to Psalms 82, right? And I'm there, and I'm like, let's talk about this. I'm like, you read this book, blah, blah, blah. You understand that you God, da, 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 right? Going back and forth with all this. Respectfully, of course, it's my uncle. You see what I'm saying? So I'm like, don't give me the big G, little G. I done heard the conversation. Let's talk about this right here. What does this mean? He said, "I'll be right back." And Kava, in that moment when he said, "I'll be right back," I remember that this was my uncle who used to come to my house and whoop my behind when I got out of out of sync with what's going on. I was like, "Oh, my uncle about to whoop my behind when he come back in here." You see what I'm saying? And he came back in there with the bylaws of the church. It's Universal Hager Spiritual Church. He said, "Read them." So I'm reading through. He said, "Stop right there. Read that. We believe God is man and man is God." I said, "Oh, so what? What about the church and all this other stuff?" He's like, "Yeah, it's church for people who want church, but it ain't church for everybody who's in the church." He said, "If you want Jesus, you come in the front door. If you want the real, you come in the back door." So by whatever door you enter into the church, we know what you're looking for. And I said, man, I said, so what you talking about Jesus for? He said, well, Jesus keep the lights on. He said, so most of the folks come for that right there. You see what I'm saying? So it's just, with that conversation, after that point, there wasn't nothing to debate with people about, and nothing that you're supposed to learn that's supposed to be useful for you. It's supposed to be something that deters you from your family. It's supposed to be things that pull you closer to your family. So now if you say there's somewhere in your family, somebody in your family that this done touched, because we don't do nothing new. You see what I'm saying? So whether it was made manifest to you or not, somebody was doing something. You see what I'm saying? Your gravitation wouldn't be there if it wasn't for that, So with me, with my family on that, African journey, I was born that way. You see what I'm saying? So, it was different adaptations of how it looked over time based upon what I was looking for. But this was the core. This was the foundation. It never went any way left or right. It just was just a longer path. And I made it more difficult at times than it had to be. You see what I'm saying? But now those things and conversations with people are very easy, very simple, and they're all, done in love, versus, some of the stuff you might see out of here. Folks be more religified, supposed to be conscious than the religious folks. You see what I'm saying? And then they don't have the practical application to self-restraint, self-discipline, and these other faculties that are there that these folks that you say and being lied to have, I don't see nobody fasting, more than the Muslim. If Ramadan is in August, guess what they're doing? If it's in July, guess what they're doing? You see what I'm saying? So those tenets in regards to fasting, in regards to prayer, in regards to keeping up with tenets and living in a communal fashion, all of these things that we are espousing to do under the guise of a title called nation building, you got folks that live this way that you can take lessons from. You see what I'm saying? So, countless things like that. So I don't have a lot of those conversations, as you can see. And it was just refreshing to hear that, through example, through your father's example and your example, that others are inspired to do, and that you kept what you kept in its sanctity, your family, based upon example, and not just, fancy words or slick talk, because they got him out there a million miles an hour. But so as far as moving into consciousness, how did you, morph into Kava, the soul singer that shows up and wows everybody at events? And you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So there are three people who are now ancestors who are responsible for that. The one, my late wife Ayo, who made her transition over 6 years ago. She used to always say, you need to sing, because if you don't sing, because you need to get that energy out. Because if you don't, you keep messing with me, I'm gonna knock you out. I'm gonna take you out. So just for your own health, you need to you need to learn. You need to get out there and give this energy to the world, because you're just holding it in, and I'm getting too much of it. So it was her. Then there's this other brother by the name of Lasana Mack, who used to be the founder, leader of this group called Black Notes. And we did, a lot of African conscious music, a lot of original stuff here in the DC area. We met once, and we got to talking, and he heard me singing at an open mic. And he was like, do you want to join the group? And so I told him, I talked it over with my wife, and she was like, yes, you need to join the group. That's what I was talking about. You need to do it. So I started singing with them in 2007. That's when I really started singing again. And then I also started singing a little bit after that with different, cover bands in the area. We sang, just classic soul music and all that. And I still sing with a few of them even today. But then the third person was this brother out of Baltimore by the name of Reggie Logan, better known as Rough Mike from the group Precise Science.
Rough Mike, yeah.
And so I started singing with him also in 2007. And we knew each other from, just the community. And they had mentioned that they were looking for somebody. This was on another radio online program. And they had mentioned that they were looking for somebody who sang. And we knew each other, but they didn't know I sang, because then I was still kind of just getting started back into singing. And so I reached out to them. I was like, yo, I could sing. And they kind of like gave me the side eye. Like, I mean, we know you, brother, but I mean, come on, man. Because people don't believe you can sing, everybody, just talking. And so I finally went over to Baltimore, drove up to Baltimore, got together, went to the studio, sang, and I wrote a hook for a song called "So Far" on their first album, and so from that point it was a wrap, and we started touring together, recording together, going all over the country with Professor Griff and Deb Prez and Brother Jay from X Clan, some of the people that particularly with Professor Griff and Brother Jay, people that we grew up listening to. We were now working with, so that was a beautiful thing. And of course, Brother Ruff passed a couple of years ago, and Brother Lasana passed in 2014, my wife in 15, and then Brother Rough Mike in 18. So those are three people who are no longer here, but always still here, of course, because energy never dies. It just changes forms, and we leave a little bit of us in all of the people that we touch. And so, I also just continue to sing as a legacy for them, to continue to honor them and honor their spirit. So that spirit and that soul is not just me. It's also my ancestors, and it's also those people that touch me, on a spiritual and soul level.
I got to give them a sample, okay? Because I don't want y'all to think I'm just talking some noise over here. Understand? I got 2 little samples, and I wanted to get you in your element, but I didn't want to hear you drowned out with the band, because the band could do that to you sometime. I wanted two joints to give them a little sample in case they don't know. They're like, yeah, that brother talking. No. This ain't shower singing. You understand what I'm saying? Like, everybody do a little something. This ain't, I had too much of the oil. You understand? Too many libation, and I'm feeling that liquid courage. This is not it. You understand what I'm saying? So instead of me trying to ask the brother to do this right here, right now, I'm gonna just give y'all a little quick sample. The soul stirrer. And after your soul gets stirred up, then y'all will be like, yeah. Okay. Let me give them a quick sample.
Hang on to the world as it spins around. Just don't let the spin get you down. Things are moving fast. Hold on tight and you will last. Keep your self-respect, your woman and manly pride. Get yourself in gear, keep your stride. Never mind your fears. Brighter days will soon be here. Take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Keep on walking tall. Hold your head up high. Lay your dreams right up to the sky. Sing your greatest song. And you keep going on. Take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Hey, just wait and see. someday we'll all be free. That's today's Tuesday tune. Peace. I knew that a touch could mean so much. What a difference. And when we walk hand in hand, I feel so real. Lovers come and then lovers go. That's what folk would say. Don't they know they're not there when you love me? Hold me and say you care. And know what we have is much more than they could see. And what we have is much more than they could see.
Okay.
Appreciate that, brother.
Hey. That's why the lady passed out in the 5 heartbeats. You understand what I'm saying? You can't, you know?
Appreciate that, brother. Yeah, I haven't done one of those.
Background on that, and you know, the second part to that is, what is it like for you? You know, on the stage with the band, on the stage by yourself, in those places and spaces, and receiving the, you know, the adoration that you get. You know, what can you share with us about that feeling?
Well, you know, I was doing these things I call Tuesday tunes, where on certain Tuesdays I would do a little short, little something. You know, usually it's just songs that inspired me by artists that inspired me. Certainly Jeffrey Osborne was one of those people, is one of those people. I mean, you know, a lot of times they feature the guys with the little light voices, the little high voices and stuff. You know, they don't really represent for the baritones too much, you know. So, you know, I like the brothers, you know, that represent, you know, for the baritones. You know, all the voices sound great. I mean, it's, you know, there's some people. I mean, I love Stevie. It's like one of my favorite singers. But you know, his voice is just, his register is much higher than mine. You know, so mine is, you know, a lower register. So I was always trying to find those people like Jeffrey Osborne and Donny Hathaway and others, Gil Scott-Heron, you know, who kind of just inspired me on that level. As far as singing on the stage, it's a great experience, man. It's a way to release. You know, some people paint, you know, some people walk, you know, some people do work out. I like to work out too. I like to walk too. But people do different things to kind of release energy. You know, I think it's important that we find something. And you don't necessarily have to be great at it. You know, you don't have to be, you know, whatever. But as long as it's something that allows you to really just let off and release some energy. Because I mean, as African people in this country, in this society, man, it's definitely a must for us. Because it's a great way to just kind of put off some stress, in a helpful way, and a more productive way to put off stress, other than some of the other things that this society makes more readily available for us in order to de-stress, which a lot of times are not are to our detriment. You know, so I think that for me, that's what music does. That's what singing does. It just gives me the chances to let it go and just be somebody else. You know, for a minute. You know, it's a part of me, but it's just a part. When I say somebody else, it's actually a part. It is me. It's just a part of me that people don't always sing because it's not like you walk around singing all the time. You know, people look at you like you're crazy, even if you sound good. It's like, okay, this dude is always singing. You know, so it's just a great way to release. As far as the gift, you know, and how I feel about it, you know, it's funny. I've come across a lot of great singers, right? You know. And sometimes singers there are some singers who, you know, I think they get a little full of themselves, and there's some arrogance. Sometimes you can understand that because some people are like supremely talented, and you kind of get that. But at the end of the day, we have to remember that, I remember at least, and I think that it would be good for everybody else who were just blessed with a talent, is that I didn't do anything to earn my voice. Like, I'm sure other people would want to be able to be blessed with the gift of song. Just like I mentioned earlier, I would have loved to have been blessed with the gift of being able to rhyme. I would have loved that. I probably would have done that. I probably would have done both, actually, but I certainly would have leaned more to being an MC. Unfortunately for me, that ain't my gift. I was not gifted lyrically like that. I can write, but not rhyme like that. So I realized that this is, I didn't do anything to earn this. So if from my point of view, if I didn't do anything to earn it, I don't have the right to be arrogant, with a gift that I didn't earn. You know what I mean? You really shouldn't be arrogant even if you earn something, but certainly if you did not earn it, if it was just something that was given to you from birth. Now, certainly I work on it. I hone my skills and all of that, of course, but I already had the basics down already because I was kind of gifted with it. I mentioned before my father sang, my mother's father sang, was a great singer who I never met him. He passed away before I was born, but by all accounts, he was a fantastic singer. So I kind of had, a little genetic help in terms of being able to sing. So I always try to keep that in mind and just try to just be humble, man, and just try to just keep pushing.
All right, with the last few minutes we got, let's talk about African Independence Day. Brother Oba, he is the the whisperer. You understand what I'm saying? He's the whisperer, and the loud voice out there. What was it about this particular observation that brought you, your attention here?
Well, it's a great event. It's for a great cause. I actually had the pleasure of performing in 2019. Actually, the last one that was held in Philly at the park there. I think it's Malcolm X Park. I think y'all have a Malcolm X Park there, just like we have a Malcolm X Park in DC. DC and Philly are kind of like twin cities. A lot of the streets are named the same after the same colonizers and genociders. we got I forget the name of the streets now. But anyway, DC, Baltimore, Richmond, Philadelphia all have these, kind of same streets and same colonizers kind of planned the whole places. But so I was there for that a couple of years ago. And when the brother asked me to come back again, I was very honored. Of course, we didn't do last year. At least I didn't do last year. I know everything was virtual. So I'm just pleased to come back this year and be able to do it again, because it's just a great event. It's a great cause. We still are fighting for our liberation. We still are fighting for our independence. And I think, to bring that spirit of inspiration, as Dr. Khalid Muhammad used to say, inspiration and information. It's very important because Black people are people of rhythm and spirit, and we are moved, by the arts. So I consider myself a cultural worker, cultural warrior for our people, to inspire our people, to inspirit our people with that spirit of freedom and liberation. So it's right in line with my cause, the Ka and the Ba, the spirit and the soul of liberation for African people. That's what it's all about for me. So it's always a great honor to be asked to come to such events as this, and be a part of it. So I'm looking forward to it on Saturday, 1:30. I'll be doing the Black National Anthem, written by two brothers from the state where I was born, James Rosamond Johnson and the other Johnson, James Johnson. Both of them I think were named James Johnson. One was Rosamond, and I forget the other one's name. But one of them wrote the words, and the other one wrote Weldon. Yes, James Weldon Johnson. And James, how could I forget Weldon Johnson? And James Weldon Johnson wrote the words, and James Rosamond Johnson wrote the music for Lift Every Voice and Sing. And I'll be singing all three stanzas, because one of my elders, Mama Kaumba, who passed away. Mama Kaumba passed away. She was an elder in the community here in DC. She was in her 90s, and she had been an African freedom fighter way back in the 60s. And she was one of the early people who started Kwanzaa here in DC. She just passed a few months ago, and Mama Nia Kaumba. And I can remember years ago when we used to sing, lift every voice and sing in the opening of Kwanzaa ceremonies here in DC. She chastised us for only singing the first verse. And so ever since then, I said, if I ever have the opportunity to do it, and if it's allowed, I will definitely do all 3 verses. So I got to do it in the spirit of Mama Nia out there.
Thank you, Mama Nia. Okay, we need all 3 stanzas. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. And if you don't know it, shame on you. Okay. You
yes, sir. Yeah. And brother Oba. Yeah. Well, I got an advantage because I sing. No, I mean, it's important, man. I got an advantage because I used to sing when I went to college after I went to the military, and I sang in the concert choir, and we had to learn all 3 stanzas way back then. So I kind of sort of have, an advantage that a lot of people didn't have. I had to learn it during then, but I didn't forget all these years later. So I still remember all 3 verses.
That's what's up. We're excited to have you. Excited to have you a part of this celebration. Setting it off in the way that it needs to. Both you and Queen Jasira will give that divine feminine and divine masculine energy that's necessary to culminate this celebration in the spirit of my eyes.
My Queen Jasira out of
So any final
out
remarks?
Out of Memphis. I know Queen Jasira well, worked with her as well when we went over there. Now I think I'm lagging a little bit, but I was just saying, shouting out to Queen Jasira. I worked with her over when I did some things over in Memphis some years ago. So glad to know that she's on the program, and I look forward to people being there. And again, I give thanks for being here on this platform with you today, brother. Appreciate Do the Knowledge Radio. Always support, and looking forward to Saturday.
Most definitely. So if people want to collab with you, or they want you to sing with them, or sing for them, or perform someplace, how can they get a hold of you?
At Kaba Soul Singer on everything. Put that on everything. K-A Soul Singer. Mostly I'm on IG and I'm on Facebook. I admit I'm not the most active on those platforms, but I do check them, from time to time. But those are the best way to reach me. And then, of course, email is old school now, but you can still reach me, kabasoulsinger@gmail.com. KABA soulsinger@gmail.com.
Right. Definitely. Thank you, Shanti Sana, for your time and your jewels and your, walk down memory lane. This is your platform, and you are welcome here anytime.
Yes, sir. Thank you, my brother. Peace to the family, and be seeing y'all on Saturday.
All right, y'all. We out of here. Peace.
Yeah. Now we gonna tell them. Night in front. We tell them like this, yo. I'm an African. I'm a African. I'm an African. I'm a African. Yeah, y'all like that? So no more. This man's mind is open. I'm an African. I'm a African. I'm a African. I'm a. Let's get back to the gritty.